Welcome back, this is Andrew, and today we're going to talk about my top 5 legendaries that have the most utility on my account, and it would be wise to invest into them if you have them as well. So I'm going to start off with Lasandra. She is, I don't know if you guys remember that video that Raid put out, was it like less than a year ago? They put out this video to show you where you use your champions, which ones you use the most. Mine was Lasandra. I use her the most out of all my champions. She has this move called Exhaustion. This is her A2. Attacks one enemy, fully depletes the target's turn meter. It's amazing. She used to be God tier for Fire Knight, which I still use her in my Fire Knight team, but she doesn't completely like destroy the turn meter as much as she used to when you go to Fire Knight 25. You can use her in some of those comps for the Doom Tower bosses. That actually does work, but you have to keep in mind for the high in-game stuff, she doesn't fully deplete it. This fully deplete used to be a big deal. Now with all the bosses and mechanics and stuff that have preventions from their turn meter going down instantly or all the way, it doesn't work too well anymore, but it still works great. I use her all the time still. So energizes her A3. Places a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. Fills the turn meters of all allies by 30%. Decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 30%. So whenever like I'm in my arena team, I usually have her in there. I put Arbiter first so she can like get that speed boost. I use Lysandra's Energize, and that pushes even more speed boost and decreases the enemy's champions turn meter, and then my decreased defense and then my nuker go next, and they just usually wipe everything. I use her in everything. I use her in arena, Fire Knight, Doom Tower. I've used her in Dragon. You can use her really anywhere. If you don't have any use for this exhaustion move, you have Energize. I mean, that's a huge benefit move. And don't let me forget about her aura. 25% speed on all allies for the battles. So this is a really good aura. Enough to talk about Lasandra. We'll move on to the next one. The next one on my list is, where are we at? We're gonna go right up to Lady Kimmy. Lady Kimmy is another speed booster champion. As you can see, where I'm going with this video is mainly towards the speed champions. They just benefit your account so much. They do so many good things in the fights. Her A1, she can attack one enemy, then attacks the enemy with the highest turn meter. So that's 2 attacks. Will attack the same enemy twice if the initial target has the highest turn meter. So it's like she has a double hitter on her A1. You go to her A2, this attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing 50% decreased accuracy debuff and 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. So that accuracy and the decreased speed is crucial, especially when you're dealing with bosses. For example, the Hydra, and it's an all enemy. It's not just one enemy, it's all enemies. So it also has a 75% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 15%. So that wouldn't work on the bosses. Some of them, like Hydra, like clan boss, it's not going to work on those, but it will work on Fire Knight. It'll work on some of the dungeon bosses, and obviously in the arena and the waves that you're fighting against. We go to A3, and it removes 1 random buff from each enemy, then has a 75% chance of placing a block debuff, or 2 turns on all enemies who have buffs removed. This is awesome. So you remove the buffs, and then it has a 75% chance, well, 100% chance when booked, to place block buffs on the enemies. So, and then also fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% and places a 50% increased accuracy and a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. So she's removing the enemy's buffs, placing block buffs. She is increasing your speed, decreasing their speed. Just overall amazing, and that's for all the enemies. So, and then her passive here is whenever this champion places a debuff on an enemy, also decreases that turn meters. It also decreases the enemy's turn meter by 5% for each debuff placed. So just constant decreasing speed, or the turn meter. And her aura is amazing. Her aura is 30%. I think that's the highest speed aura in the game, but it's only limited to the Doom Tower. So she's usually in my speed leads in the Doom Tower when I've had bosses. Okay, that's number 2. We're gonna go to number 3 on my list. We're gonna go to Raglan. Raglan is an amazing support champion. If you put her in a regen set, stack her with decent defense and some health, she is a strong reviver. She has this on her A2, she removes debuffs on all allies. She has a cleanse, and then heals them for amount of this proportional to her attack. So if you want to get some good heals, you can build up her attack. I'm not too focused on the heals. Repent, her A1 attacks the enemy 3 times, fills a turn meter of 3 random allies by 15%. So allies can only have their turn meter filled once per turn by this skill. So every time she attacks, she's increasing the allies' turn meters, and it's a 3 hitter, so it's pretty good. Then we go to, it's a very simple mechanic. The res revives an ally with 75% HP and a full turn meter. So she revives them and then they go immediately. Not only that, it's a 2-turn cooldown. That's pretty crazy. That's definitely the fastest res in the game. Unfortunately, it's only 1 person, but at the same time, that's enough to get you going. Get the team kind of restarted if 1 person dies. For Aura is a great ally defense of all battles by 33%. That's pretty strong. That's a strong defense aura. All right, number 3 down. We're gonna go back down here to Rogni. Rogni, I use him in a lot of places. I use him in some of my fast teams if I want to put some buffs up for Seer to clear. He puts a lot of buffs on your champions. Also, he has an amazing shield. So his kit's a pretty big one. So his A3, I'll start with that. That's his glory move right there. Resilient Glow. Places block debuffs buff and a 50% increase attack on all allies for 2 turns. Also places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 30% of his max HP. So you want to build him with HP. The shield buff cannot be removed. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you're going against champions that remove buffs. You're going against the enemies that remove buffs, because this shield will not go away. The only thing that I found that it ever goes away is if you have Seer use her karma and it strips off all the buffs from your champions. It's a pretty crazy move. Alright, is A2. This is a move that attacks all enemies, 75% chance of removing 1 random buff from all enemies. So he can strip the buffs. You pair him with the Lady Kimmy, you guys are stripping buffs all the time. It's pretty crazy. So has a 75% chance of removing 1 random buff, or has a 75% chance of removing 1 random debuff from all allies, increases the value of the shield. So he will strip the enemy's buff and remove your debuffs. So solid right there, you know. The shield buff on all allies by 30% if the damage is inflicted. So increases the shield. Okay, so if you have the shield, he just increases it by 30%. His A1 is a HP burn debuff. X1 enemy has a 45% chance of placing HP burn for 2 turns. So that's an extra added debuff that he can put on people. I'm not sure why they put that on him. That's kind of an odd thing. Maybe it's because he has that lantern thing or whatever is his mace thing. And then you go down to his passive. So whenever an ally under a shield buff is attacked, reflects 25% of the damage inflicted on that shield back to the attacker. Also heals that ally by 25% of the damage inflicted on that shield. So if your character is shielded, has low health, he gets hit, and the shield's still there, you get healed, and then it reflects damage back onto the attacker. So just awesome. If there are multiple champions in the team with this skill, only 1 will activate. And then you go over here to this Doom Tower aura. It's resist for 60. So it increases ally resist in Doom Tower battles by 60. Okay, so that's number 4. All right, last but not least, we go all the way to Miss Lydia. She is the one that you will get from the faction wars if you complete the faction wars. So she has a lot of utility. I use her in a lot of areas. I use her for my Doom Tower waves when I clear them really fast. I use her for just bosses in general because of mainly one move, Siren's Wail. This has a decreased defense and weaken, which is very important if you want to do major damage. You can use her in the arena, you can use her in a lot of spots. So this attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing 60% decreased defense debuff and a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. Also places a 25% strengthen. Strengthen, I have been finding out that is a very strong move to have when you're going against people that do a lot of damage. Strengthen is just like an extra defense buff. Yeah, I mean, you can get increased defense, block debuffs, and then strengthen, and you're pretty solid. You're pretty strong for that fight. And 30%, so it also puts an increased speed, a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. She buffs your champions, weakens the other champions, and decreases defense. So it's a pretty good move. Her A1 attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing fear for 1 turn, has a 75% chance of increasing the duration of poison sensitivity debuffs for 1 turn. Her passive on this is attacks enemy champions with the skill whenever they place a freeze, a stun, fear, true fear, petrification on an ally. So if one of your guys gets frozen, she attacks. If one of your guys gets feared, she attacks. And then she can put fear on the attacker. So the number of attacks increasing accordingly to how many debuffs are placed at that time. Yeah, that's a really cool mechanic. It's something very unique, and it helps out. You know, that's the good part about that. For A3 nullification, this also, so what this does, it puts poison sensitivity on the enemy, also blocks buffs and active skills. Comes in very handy when you're trying to go against like Doom Tower content. You don't want that enemy using some of those moves. Her passive is off the rocker. Denies any revive attempts. This works when the champion is dead. This works, so if Lydia is dead, it still works. If this champion is alive, when the enemy is revived, revive is denied, revives all allies. So when Lydia is alive, you have your rest of your team's almost dead, you got a couple people dead, and then they try to res one of their people, denies it, then revives all of your dead allies with 50% HP and turn meter. If this champion is dead, when the enemy revive is denied, revives this champion with 50% HP and turn meter. Also ignores block revive. Her aura is resist in arena battles by 100. I think that's the highest, but it's only for arena battles. Like, there's just specific things that these auras are only meant for, especially when they're high, a high number like that, like 100. So, and also, I mean, Lydia, I remember when I got her, I was pretty excited. She has an amazing skin. So I just like the wings, and you know, she looks pretty crazy. She's like a demon, dark elf demon, I guess. All right, guys. Well, Lydia is my number 5, and I think that'll do it for today. I think, what are they all women except for Brogni, I guess. Brogni is Mr. Stud Muffin in the middle of all those women. So yeah, if you have any of those champions, which I'm sure you might have one of them at least, invest in them. They're awesome champions. They're great utility. They're all really good champions. You guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. It's Sunday. Have enjoyed the last little bit of it until you go to work tomorrow, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, see ya. Quickly add in this video, I just hit 100 subscribers, and I am very happy about that. Thank you guys for subscribing and enjoying my content. It's been a couple months and got past 100 subscribers. That's a goal. That's awesome. So yeah, I'll leave it to you there. I'll see you in the next one.